Hey folks, Philip B-Man here. It's a little after Christmas and I'm away from my university job for about 2 weeks. So I'm going to try to make the most of it by doing a bit more research on mite treatments. We have, behind that door is all my hives with the mites. There's not a guarantee they haven't seen light in 2 months now. There's no brood in those hives. Those mites are ripe for the picking. But how to get them, that's the question we have, and other people are talking about what to do, and I don't have the nerve to play with a whole room, either with carbon dioxide or formic or something. So I just want to do tests on individual hives, and so thinking about how to do that, I've rounded up a few products that we know work. Thymovar, Apolife Var, and the Formic Pro are what I'm going to test. And I've built myself some bottom board screens because what I want to do here is be able to monitor these hives. I mean, not these hives, once I'm inside, but I've built myself some screens so that I can slide some sticky paper in under the hive and get sort of real-time results. I have about 12 hives from my control of my test in the fall that we think have about 2% mites in them. So if I put something in those hives that knock mites down, I should get mites on that paper. If you've got 2% mites on 10,000 bees, if you've got anything that's working, you should get 100 mites on that sheet. And if it's even remotely working. So that's kind of the goal. So I built these. And just a rough frame with some old screen I had kicking around. And it just slides over my those struts like that, and then the hive will go on top, and the hive entrance is now above the screen, and I can slide the paper in below. I'll show you how I'm making those. There are 5 pieces in total. So this piece is the back, and I just dadoed out the overlaps. And anytime I'm going to make more than about 2 of anything, I always do it on a jig so that they all turn out the same. And then I've got some glue, and so I'll just use lots. I'm only making a few of these, so I can be a little bit sloppy. And I'll staple all that together. I got long staples for this end where it has to go through the full thickness. And then I need shorter staples for this end. That's what the frame looks like. This is a piece of scrap, so it's got an odd cut in it. And then I'm going to lay that screen over the bottom edge and staple it on. I'll show you that in a minute. And then that fits over my pallet. It'll hold 2 hives. And my goal is to get some kind of fairly quick results on what these things are looking like. So before I worry about building fume hoods or enlarging my space so I have enough room to move hives around to put treatments in, first thing to know is, are you doing something that's going to work? So my goal is just to try to measure some basic efficacy, and I'm going to do, I'm relying a lot on the research that Robin Underwood and Rob Curry did up here in Manitoba 15 or 20 years ago now. And what they found was that winter treatments that weren't destructive on the bees needed to be kind of very gentle and slow exposures. They were fumigating rooms full of hives, I think about 10 hives in a small chamber, and cooking formic up in there. And their best results were on a very low level, long exposure. I think it was 30 days at 10 parts per million or something. And so I'm going to do a little math and figure out how much of a strip of that Formic Pro I would need to put in the hive to kind of get that similar result. And I'll compare that to putting in partial amounts of those thymol treatments. And we want to, again, have just a kind of a real low level exposure. Thought about using oxalic, but honestly, those hives are so tightly clustered that when you're trying to sublimate that oxalic in the hive, I don't think you get much penetration. We played with that a bit last year, and I didn't see the kind of mite knockdown that I would have expected given the levels of mites that some of those hives had. So my theory is that the cluster, you're only exposing the outside of the cluster to that oxalic, and that's not enough. I might try a little bit of a drizzle with glycerin to see if by putting it right on the cluster and letting those bees mix it around, if that would get some results. So that's the plan, is to make sure that these screen bottom boards can be an effective measurement tool. And once I get that rolling, then I can try a bunch of stuff and see what works. All right, putting on the screen. I've got leftover screen. These are made from, I had screen bottom boards at one time that were essentially just a screen on top of recycled pallets. And that got me started with going to pallets 20 years, maybe it's 20 years ago now. And so these are pretty much the last of the screens from that era. And I'm just going to staple them down with my electric stapler. And then I'll trim off the excess. I like to use these serrated shears. They have, one side has this serration on it. For a screen, I find they work very, very well. They don't necessarily make a pretty cut. I'm going to want gloves. Where did my gloves go? There they are. The screen can be a little hard on your hands. And there you have it. And that's what the front will look like. So the new entrance to the hive is this space here. I'm considering blocking a portion of that entrance off with a block of wood and then having the entrance reduced. That would have the benefit of also holding that screen up a little bit. This is the way it'll sit. So that starts to sag and get in my way, then I'll probably lift that and then reduce the entrance at the same time, right? I'm gonna try it this way first. And then it just goes over the pallet to get it to go over the pallet. I actually just put it in the right place. And push down, and the sharp edges on those clips are enough to cut the screen. So that's how that'll sit. And then I have a box. The actual hive will sit like that. And so all of the bees will go in and out this space, and I have the lower space to slide in my sticky board. Wait a few days, pull it out, and we either celebrate because it's full of mites, or we try again. Thanks a lot, everyone. Have a great day.